Hello, welcome to Dare to Share with Mistie Layne. This is going to be an awesome interview. We have Anthony Trucks here. He is someone so dynamic, you guys. He has gone from foster care, growing up with many, many challenges and adversities. He's turned it all around. He has learned to make shift happen in his life. He went on to play in the NFL. He is an American Ninja Warrior. How exciting is that, right? And now he has all kinds of amazing things going on. His podcast, he's an author, he's a speaker. He's got this great identity shift program that he's going to talk to us about. So many awesome things. But before we bring him on, I would like to ask you that you go ahead and share this out with your family and friends. You never know who might need to hear something Anthony has to say, or something I have something to say during the show that might just change their lives. So share this out. It's 2 seconds, a click of a button. Hit the share for me. Also, I invite you to my Facebook page where I have a private group called #BeThatOne. Be That One is a movement where I encourage people to step up, share their raw, authentic truth with transparency. It's all about transparency, being transparent with not just others, but also with themselves, so that they can share their stories and we can all learn from each other. We can all learn and become educated and aware of all those stories, and therefore we can judge less and mentor more. So Dare to Share was my dream, to have a platform for people to actually step up and be that one and do just that. So thank you. Thank you for being here and supporting the show. And speaking of support, this show is powered by sponsors. So I would like to take a brief moment to introduce our sponsors and thank them as well for powering us today. Today's show is sponsored by Simple Changes from Wanda Reynolds. Make a simple change today for a healthier tomorrow with products like Simply Satisfy, which aids in gut digestion and curbs your appetite. Mental wellness is directly related to gut health, so keep a happy gut with Simply Satisfy. Then there's Simply Soothe. It helps relax your sore muscles and it supports your overall joint health. Simply Start is made from 100% organic hemp oil. It promotes your calmness, supports sleep, and maintains healthy joints. Contact Wanda Reynolds today through Facebook Messenger or at scdso.com/live life wonderfully. Health provides simple solutions to whole body health. To get and stay healthy, we offer Somaderm HGH Gel. Would you like to sleep like a baby and wake up rested? Do you want to feel maximum benefits from physical exercise? Do you want to burn through that afternoon slump with energy to last well into the night? Well, you can. And you may also experience 25 other whole body improvements with the gel. It's effective, safe, FDA registered, and very affordable. Diane has immuno boosters and keto support products too. Contact Diane Chasik at lifesmilehealth.com or text lifestyle to 64600 today. All right, you guys, I ask that you check out their products and please support them so they can continue supporting this platform. All right, without further ado, we are going to bring on this special, amazing guest, Mr. Anthony Trucks. Hi, Anthony. Welcome to Dare to Share.
Hey, thank you for having me. How are you doing? For being here.
I'm great. You and I don't know each other, so this is kind of our first time to meet as well. So I love that impromptu thing.
It's always good that way. Organic.
It is. I'd like to welcome Mr. Robert Brooker to the show, and all the other guests that are watching. Go ahead and feel free to leave your comments. If you would type in the comments, welcome Anthony Trucks, so he knows that you're here listening to him and he can feel the love from our little group that we have going here. All right, Anthony. So I always like to start Dare to Share out with a 2 or 3 minute window for you just to brag about the things you're most proud of in life, some of your biggest accomplishments. Because I know things aren't always cupcakes and rainbows. I know that we're going to get to that other stuff later, but let's start out by just letting you have a couple of minutes to shine, okay?
Yeah, a couple minutes to shine. Well, one, I'm here not for me. I'm here for everybody else because I'm post-workout. I should be in the shower right now, but I'm awfully sweaty. But I'm here to hang out with Misty because she wanted me to come talk to you guys. So thank you for hanging out with me. A couple things about myself that I'm happy and incredibly proud of. I'm proud of my marriage. I have an awesome marriage with an imperfect human because she's with an imperfect human as well, which is me. I have 3 kids that I love. that are crazy in their own right, but man, they're awesome human beings. I have a business that allows me to give back to people based on things that I've figured out in my own life, finish lines I've crossed that I can now go and help other people cross. And then I get to do some cool stuff in the world that is outside the realm of what people would expect, which is I got a place, an opportunity to play in the NFL. So I'm one of the few individuals that went from foster care up to the NFL and progress into that. I run a successful business. I get to travel and speak. I talk to thousands of people at a time. I've been on TV multiple times. I'm actually the first former NFL athlete to hit a buzzer in American Ninja Warrior. And so I do some really cool things. And it's made more cool because statistically, I should not be doing any of this stuff, which is kind of the interesting thing as to why I even do what I do. I have this huge desire to help people from things that I have accomplished and things I've done. And it just makes sense because it turns all the past crazy into a purposeful thing. It's not something that I like the things that I've experienced, but I appreciate all of them because it made me the man I am today. And that I think that's a good guy at the moment.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. That's a lot. That's a lot. Let's back up for a minute because I am not familiar with the American Ninja Warrior. Can you just briefly tell us a little bit about that, what it is, what that means? You hit the buzzer. What does that mean? Of
course. So American Ninja Warrior is a show that was sprung from this Japanese show, just Ninja Warrior. We call it American Ninja Warrior, obviously. And you have these obstacles you have to go and jump around. Typically, a lot of rock climbers will do it. Guys that are like 5'8", $150, $160. And at one point in time, my wife signed me up for the show, and I kind of completed the application with her. Had no idea really what it was. And then come to find out, you can see it on TV. Imagine it's like big, crazy lit up structure and you swing and jump in all on your hands and cross these weird obstacles. And at the end, you have to go up this, I think it's like a 14-foot wall, the warped wall. You have to run up this thing. So you run up it after you cross all these crazy obstacles and you hit the buzzer at the top. But the interesting thing is like, I am an oddity because I stand above all the guys and I'm always the heaviest ninja. So I'm like, at the moment, 6'1", close to 240, whereas most of those guys like 5'8", $150. So just a vastly different size. Oh, look at a little video of a picture. There you go. That's me up in the air, breaking things.
That's really cool. Wow. So you're still involved with that show today, or is that a one-time thing?
No, I did it for 3 years. So for 3 straight years, I went from the city finals to city qualifiers to the city finals. Couldn't make it to Vegas, but I retired this last year, which was good, I guess, because it all got shut down anyways, although they're about to, I think, relaunch it. But yeah, 3 years straight. And then my body was like, no, we're going to move on from that.
That's enough. That's it. Okay. All right. Well, let's get back. You started out by talking, you said that you were a foster child. So yeah, I think when you and I spoke, you said at age of 3 is when you entered the foster system. So tell us a little bit about that and what that journey was like.
So 3 years old was me, and then I have 3 siblings that all have the same dad. I have a different dad, and my mom had us back to back to back to back. So I was 3. We had a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a brand new baby. And she essentially called social services, said, I don't want my kids. So we got put into a foster care system that at that time, it wasn't a very good system. It's still not perfect now, but very bad back then. There wasn't, reporting. There was no camera phones. There wasn't no, there's nothing. Essentially a kid and that kid's word. So I was like starved in some homes, beaten in homes, tortured, like really weird, heinous stuff. So by the time I was 6, like just 3 years in the system, I was a really shut down, unhappy kid. And then I landed into the family, which is my family now. Very interesting dynamic because we were a very poor family and they were all white. So I was the only black kid in a poor all white family. And so my upbringing was very interesting. In the formative years of my life, I was not being nurtured and formed very well. And that's kind of one of those things that, man, like statistically, if you look at any prison in America, 75% of the inmates are former foster kids. 50% of the foster kids, end up homeless, if not more. And then I think less than 1% of us ever graduate from college. So statistically, I really am not supposed to be doing very much, but I've been able to accomplish some cool things from a pretty crappy start.
I was amazed when I read that 75% of prisoners in the U.S. are former foster kids.
Yeah.
And, you and I don't know each other that well, but a lot of my viewers do know my story. I went from medical school to prison behind a horrific cocaine accident where I killed someone in a car accident. So I was a prisoner. I was in prison for 2.5 years. And I didn't even amongst the women, getting to know them as I did, I didn't really even realize that high of a percentage of people were foster kids.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. I mean, I'm sure it had to be, which is what your whole business is around, is identity, right? I'm sure it would have to be a true identity, not a crisis, but like, I guess, an identity, a lack of an identity, not knowing where you come from. Talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
So it's actually a heavy reason as to why I do what I do. Because we all, although people, let's be honest, and everybody here listening can attest, like, oh, I know what it's like to be in foster care. So as I say this, there's an immediate kind of separation, like, oh, cool story, but you can't place yourself there. But if you get to the point of like, think back to a place where you were at any point in time feeling less than, or felt unprepared, didn't feel like you belonged, felt inadequate. Like that's the feeling that a lot of us have, because it's a shameful thing. You have these kids talking about mom and dad and these cool things, and I don't have mom or dad there supporting and shit, and being around me. So I'm dialed into myself, and it's just identity wise. Yes, you don't really have an anchored identity because you don't know where you stand or who you are, but you unfortunately do have an identity, which is I'm not good enough. My own mom and dad didn't love me enough to keep me around, and that's a difficult thing, because what happens is it creates this anger, and the anger that you have, you can only place it in one way. Typically, it's externally to this world that needs to get back because of what the world did to me. And that's why so many of us kind of turn towards like crime, because it's like, I want you to feel my pain. Unfortunately, that's what a lot of it turns into. So I grasp why, and it's a difficult place. That's why I do a lot of stuff for at-risk youth and the foster kids, because not a lot of us see people that are like us doing well.
Right. Let me ask you. This is Dare to Share. I like to get intimate. I like to talk about the vulnerable stuff that a lot of people don't talk about, because all of us deep down are probably asking this question and wondering. So when you're a little baby in foster care, you don't know, because there are families, there are people out there that give up their kids because they truly feel like they can't take care of them. It wasn't a lack of love. It wasn't an abusive situation. They were lost themselves, right? And then there's the other situation where the state takes them and different things. But as a little baby, you didn't know why your parents gave you up, right? So you're probably having to think, they just don't love me. They didn't care. Are you willing to share with us, like, have you made contact back with your parents? Do you know why, or what is that situation?
I'm just like you, a very transparent human. That the world in which I work now, it demands that of me. It's not even forced. At this point, I realize that it is my experience. It's not my story. The story is yours, right? So it's just something that happened to me. And so the truth of it is, I did meet my adoptive dad. So I'm a real dad when I was 21. So I didn't know who he was. His name on the birth certificate wasn't even present. It was a different name. But at 21, I found him, and it was interesting because like he didn't know I existed. Apologized. In the first generation Nigerian, he's from Nigeria himself, and so like for a lot of years, he didn't know I existed. And then 9 years after, before he passed away, he actually did divulge that he knew about me the entire time. He just didn't know how to be present. He thought I'd never find him, right? And so that was one interesting moment that I didn't even have anger with, because you alluded to it a moment ago, and I'll address that. And then my real mom, she was always around when I was younger. We had visitations, and visitations were interesting because we'd go to visitations, and my sibling's father would show up, and she would never show up. So because she didn't show up, visitations got expanded a month to 2 months to every 3 months. And what ended up happening at this point where she'd always call after a visitation was missed, and she'd give me some excuse as to why she wasn't there and what was going on. And so I would always eat up these lies if she worked for NASA and she owned Apple. And I mean, really crazy harebrained things. And then she'd always say, pack a bag, be at the window at 8 o'clock tonight. I'm going to drive by, hop out, hop in. We're going to drive off together and live our lives. And as a kid, you don't realize that this person is not good for you. You just want mom. And so like I would sit there, and every night I just cry myself to sleep. I'd wet the bed up until like 13, 14 years old. Every night this would happen. And eventually I stood up in front of a court and verbally looked her in her eyes, or stated to her, I said, I don't want you to be my mom anymore. Separate parental rights, allowed me to get adopted. And there was very intermittent kind of like moments in times where I would actually connect with her. Before I left for college, she told me she needed a kidney. She called me like, hey, I need a kidney from you. I'm 18 years old, getting a college scholarship. She's like, no, don't go to college. I need a kidney. And she didn't. Told me she had 6 months to live. And then I had my son at 20, and she somehow found out and got my number, and, like gave me these crazy back and forth stories. And it was just always this dynamic of me trying to navigate, like, why is it that I don't matter enough to these people just to just tell them the truth as blood? It's odd because I have kids now and I can't fathom doing that. And so essentially what I looked at is, you said earlier, a lot of people aren't given the tools. There's a lot of anger that we have with other individuals because we can't grasp they could do this thing. And unfortunately, I look back and I have a sense of grace for both of them, because I'm like, man, unfortunately, based on what tools they had, they somehow did the best they could. It sucks that the byproduct was me having this horrible childhood. But if they don't do that, I'm not who I am, and I can't teach these lessons I can to people who are dealing with similar problems.
Absolutely. And I look at that way too, because I went, we oftentimes, when it's happening to us, we're thinking, why me? Why me? And a lot of times it was always my choices I made. It was never a predestined thing. I was causing the path I was on, but wanting to blame everyone but myself at the time, right? Because I didn't know about accountability.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we don't realize that the things we're going through, if we survive them, if we choose to pick ourselves up and continue to be productive on the other side of it, can be life lessons that can prevent suffering.
It's hard to do it in the moment. That's the hard part. I fully 1000% agree. But every time I tell people that, like, yeah, but I don't know how, and I don't know what it looks like. And it's almost a cliche thing to say. And the honest part of it is you don't do it now. It's not something we think of in this moment right now. We're not going to think of it. It's just going to happen in life. And all you need to do is show up in that moment when it comes. You just do that every day. And little by little, you'll stack. And then all of a sudden, you'll look back on life and be like, I don't know how this happened, but I built something great out of it. It's not an emotional drive. Typically, it's like, all right, in this moment, it's heavy. Let me just get through this next 10 minutes, this next hour, this next day. And if you get through it, you're prepared for the next day and the next day. And after a while, those heavy days become light and they become easy.
That's good. And that's exactly why I do this show, is to give people a platform so that they can realize that they have all this value that they can offer with their story, because a lot of people hold it in. They're not even ready just to be honest with themselves, much less the world. So
fortunately,
I'm really happy that, I'm really proud of this show. It's the thing I've wanted for so long, and I'm really proud of it. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
I saw something that I wanted to capture. You'd said, what if I could be an inspiration for others? So, it's back to that mindset. You don't realize it in the moment, but after you've lived through something, I almost feel like we have an obligation to teach from it, because I feel like that's why it was given to us, so that we could educate with it, right?
Yeah. What's interesting is even those moments, people don't even think that they're the right ones to talk about. That's the crazy thing. Is there's this we call it imposter syndrome. I experienced this. I'm less than. Who am I to talk about it? It's like literally flip it on its head, because you're the person, because it's happened to you, and so many other people are fighting it in the dark without help. Just your expression of it allows someone to feel like they're not alone.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So after you got adopted, you were 14 by an all white poor family, correct?
Yeah.
Briefly talk about what that was like. I know that could be a whole show in itself, but I want to get to everything. So
it should have been a show.
What part of the United States were you in?
San Francisco Bay Area, the East San Francisco Bay Area, a town called Antioch. Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit more inland.
Growing up like that? Well, as a teenager.
Yeah, well, now it's a very diverse town. Back then it wasn't. I think I was one of maybe 2 or 3 black kids in my entire elementary school. My first foster dad was a drunk, not a very good guy. Like, so just had a lot of weird dynamics. I was never in any way, shape, or form like ostracized within the family. I was always just a brother, to this extent. Like, it's normal. I've always kind of been around. But you do have society on the outside that looks in, and it always was a funny thing. There was 8 of us, 6 kids, 2 parents, and it was always like table for 7. We go places, or a lot of weird jokes in the family. We kind of normalized. You get normalized to it. But the interesting thing is, I tell people, is I got to experience white America, is the best way to explain it, with a black experience of happening still. Like, I still have my black moments in life. It's the only way I can explain it, of going to school and being called racial slurs, or, I get pulled over in my car and the cops are asking me whose car is it? And my name's on it. Whose car is it? It's like, it's mine. But like, you have these moments. So it's interesting, the dynamic of the society we're in now, because I truly do have a really weird statue of like where I see a lot of stuff with a different filter. And so it was very difficult in the middle of it. And like growing up, and, when I finally got introduced to my culture, I don't talk like a lot of my teammates or a lot of my friends. Like, I talk like a guy that is just don't know Ebonics, eventually the best way to say it. So I get called an Oreo and called names. So like, I was always this outcast in a lot of places. But it's interesting now is because what I've been able to accomplish, I have a weird acceptance on both sides because of the way I see the world or operate in the world and what I do. So it's what I thought used to be a curse is actually a gift.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There's a friend of mine, Kevin Hoffman. He and I have spoken together a couple of different things, but he has a book called Growing Up Black and White. And it really reminds me, you two probably need to meet. I need to do an introduction.
Sounds like
there.
it.
Y'all could have a lot to talk about over that.
Probably. I'm also half white. My dad's black and my real mom's actually white also.
So your dad was Nigerian, correct? Yeah.
Nigerian. Yeah. Asaibovo should be my last name. It's Trucks because it's my biological mom's last name, but Asaibovo would be my actual true last name had my father stayed around.
Wow. Okay, so after, see, so you're with this family, tried out for the football team. You weren't very good at it, but you had a
No.
lot of discipline and work ethic, and so you trained yourself up. You got on the varsity team, and you went on and on and on. At 25, you were signed up with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Your whole life ahead of you, all these things going great for you, and then what was a shoulder injury? I think is that right?
Yeah, I was playing against the Philadelphia Eagles in '08, and they one of the guys, a lineman, ends up jumping on my back in the middle of me, playing this play, and I go down, I go to get up, jumps on my back, tears my left shoulder, ends the season, essentially ends my career. So yeah, it was a massive crisis of like, who is Anthony? Where do I fit? It's just a big sucky time in life, is the best way to explain it. Like everything you build up all of a sudden is just torn from you, and that's a really tough thing. And again, this is something where people may be like, I don't know, I didn't play in the NFL. What's that feel like? Imagine having a job that you've had for a lot of years and getting laid off at the last minute, a relationship ending, somebody passing away, sending a kid off to college, getting a new job. These massive things that end up like shifting the entire foundation of who you are. If you can experience or think of the experience you might have had with that, that's kind of what it felt like. It's tough because everything that you've worked for, you almost no longer get to use. And it's a very like unsettling white blank page feeling that a lot of people don't do well with, myself included at the time.
Yeah. And I kind of know I can relate a little bit to that. It's not due to injury, but my whole life, all I ever wanted to be since I was about 13, I knew I wanted to be a surgeon. I worked my butt off. I worked hard for it. I was at the door, got into med school right there. It was about to be handed to me on a plate. And after, a bad divorce and a bunch of insecurities and vulnerabilities, I made the decision to try cocaine at 32 years old for the first time in my life. And off I went. There, my path was altered. So it happens to us. But, the important thing is, what do we do with it on the other side? It's how we choose to use it at the end of it all. So, but it wasn't just for you, your dreams getting crushed. I mean, you were having issues with your marriage at this point. You had your kinesiology degree, so you were able to open up a gym. That went spiraling down for you economically, financially. Things were going on with your marriage. And there was a really dark time in your life that came with that, wasn't there?
Very much. I broke my life. I think you have to break things to fix them, right? And I think that part of it for me was I had this massive football ego. I was the guy, like everybody's gonna want to work with me in my business, and I'm this amazing dude. And then you come to find out you're not perfect. There's 73% of football players who leave the NFL go bankrupt within 3 years, and I personally believe a lot of it has to do with the ego. Like it's nuts, right? I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I come out and I'm better than you plebes. Like there's this thought of like, I played professional, and really it's like I did a job that I can't do anymore. Like it's nobody in the world cares that I can tackle unless I'm gonna go to Safeway and tackle people who leave the store, right? It's just not, that's gonna work. And so what I came to realize over the years was, like I broke it. So I did end up, staying at this gym from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. My wife had, we had just had twins. So like twins by themselves are incredibly difficult human beings to manage. Imagine doing it alone with a 4-year-old too. So like I just wasn't a present father. I was trying to get this thing and build this thing. And in hindsight, a lot of it was trying to build Anthony back up. So Anthony had this this chip in my shoulder that football was taken away from me. And so in doing that, man, we had a lot of marital problems. I ended up getting divorced, did the whole try to figure out my life and the Playboy lifestyle, we'll call it, and just woke up one day and just didn't like the human being I was. And that was kind of like the big catalyst motion for like this. And then also there was moments where I'm like, I didn't want to be here anymore. Best way to explain it. Didn't want to be here anymore. And I didn't take any actions, but I had somebody, you said earlier, I realized there was an inspiration from the craziness. And a buddy of mine had made this statement that like a lot of people had looked up to me in my community based on what I've accomplished. And I just didn't know it. And I had this thought like, well, maybe some part of this crazy has a purpose past whatever I made sense of. And it was then that I had the seed planted, but I wasn't in a place to water it or even talk to people about it. It took a few years. And my adoptive mom passing in 2014 for me to actually have this actual, like, let me water that seed. Let me try to make something great, because the world of what I do, I'm trying to help people make these identity shifts to reach their full potential, whatever that may be. And I realized that for me, it's something that I've been able to do because of how she unconditionally loved me. It wasn't even her blood. She loved me past a lot of crazy. And so I was like, what if I could do that for the world and make some sense of my story? And that's where we kind of started coming down this pathway. And so when I broke my life, I had to fix it. And in fixing it, like, fast forward to say 3 years after divorce, we somehow, like, God brought us back together in a strong marriage. I'm a present father, not a perfect father, but a present father. And I try to be a great father. I run businesses where I love to serve and give back to people. I try to over deliver. I still get to seek it and find out what my full potential is, but I get to watch other people do it as well through the different structure of programs I've created. And so, yeah, it's one of those things where the dark times have created the brightest times in my life at this point. I just want to do that for other people as best I can.
That's beautiful, Anthony. Now, am I understanding you went back with your wife that you had divorced?
Yeah. We're remarried. Yeah, we got divorced and then we're back together. And yeah, it's crazy because now, like,
That is
we got to grow because we were little kids, man. In the yearbook, we were high school sweethearts, like legitimately. It's like the little, they call it the Hollywood couple. I was like the homecoming king. So it's like a little perfect story. But usually when you're young, you don't know who you are. And so like she had gone through some dynamics that were difficult in her, her family. I would going through some. So we kind of were both like leaning on each other, but we were leaning on people who didn't really know who they were. And so that hiatus, as much as like I don't like how it took place or what happened, it's one of those things where in hindsight, I'm like, man, we needed that. Like we needed to go and figure out who we were and then come back. And God brought us back together on our own terms at the right time. And so now we have this creepy, strong relationship, but it's a real one. Like we do argue, we have our back and forth, but like I know her heart and then she knows my heart. So even if we do have these back, we know what the root of it is. Our kids get to see a real marriage take place, but we also have this thing where it's like we're aware of what we have accomplished and how we've come back. So we also do, like, we're in the process of starting another nonprofit. We had started one before, but didn't really pick it up. We're starting a nonprofit. We've done some cool things together. Like I'm excited to see what us being strong and anchored as an example of how to live, I believe, like a happy life, have a happy marriage can do for other people, not through what we say, but through what we actually do.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Anthony. So there was a point where I guess you got in a car, you were expecting to end your life that night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What stopped you from that? What stopped you?
I think it was like this wave. Well, no stores were open that were selling any of the rat poison I was looking for. To be totally honest. Yeah. But yeah, I got to this point where like I stopped, and it was a moment that had hit where I had this. Everything kind of came crashing down, and when you have this wave of emotions, in the moment of those things, like your body can't always distinguish between emotional and physical pain. It couldn't stop, and like I just in the heat of the moment was like, I gotta go, and sent text messages like I'm done with this, and drove off, and then it kind of subsided is the best way to explain it. But that was like legit. We'll call it the rock bottom. Like that was the one which had me coming back feeling incredibly ashamed, completely open. Like I hadn't really talked about a lot of what was going on at the time because I'm a former NFL linebacker, big 6'1" gym owning guy. I'm a black guy. Like we don't talk about emotions. And so this was a thing that opened it, cracked the shell, and it let people in. And then it gave me a sense of strength in owning these aspects that I hadn't really talked about, and found that it's odd. Like if you look at we'll call it the grand plan I didn't see happening. I'm a guy that I'm well-spoken, so I can communicate and talk. I think that comes from foster care and trying to be manipulative and charismatic to protect myself. So like my brain turned on at an early age. But then at the same time, I have this survival. Yeah. Then my mom taught me how to be compassionate, how to care by how she treated me. And then because of the things that God's allowed me to accomplish, whether it's a business or it's been football or it's, speaking, I have the ability to enter into people's lives who typically wouldn't listen to most men, because most men, they don't have like the alpha. Like I played professional linebacker football. Like that's an alpha position. So men will listen to me just enough to like, who's this guy, right? So I'm not intimidating to them, but I'm also able to communicate. And then also I can enter into women's worlds to help them because they don't feel like I'm this guy trying to get at them. They realize I have a strong marriage and I love my wife. So there's not that sense of like, I don't know if I want to get him close because what if he tries to, so there's this weird place that I've been able to enter into a world and be kind of like this oddity that's not a normalcy that allows me to reach people at a different level that not everybody can.
Right. That's great. And again, I think that the things we go through in life put us in those positions because we don't realize it. Like you said earlier, we don't realize that at the time. But now looking back, I'm an authority on domestic abuse. I'm an authority on cocaine. I'm authority on going from med school to prison. I mean, I lived it. I am an authority on perfectionism and how we use those things. So
across the finish lines.
So relevant. And I had pulled up a quote that you had said about how that day you realized as you were struggling with your own life, you realized that a friend of yours actually saw you as an inspiration and a hero. And it made you kind of change your mindset and make that shift to where instead of being so down on yourself, you could turn it around and be uplifting for others, which is exactly what we talk about all the time on this show.
It's just that one single seed. And the thing is that when that took place, it was years. It was probably 5 years before I actually watered that seed, I'll call it. Because I heard that when we hear those things, I wasn't in the timing or moment of wanting to hear it. And I was like, yeah, sounds good. But just the thought of it was like, what if? Like, what if? And then I pressed it away for a lot of years. And when it came time where I had like the wake up, like the seed was ready to be watered. It was ready to start sprouting, into whatever it is. And that's where I am now. It's a matter of those simple little words, those little perspectives that plant something like, wow, maybe if I'd been doing this by accident, inspiring people by accident, like what if I tried to do it on purpose? And that grabbed hold.
Yeah. Or like you said, what if I could be an inspiration for others,
Yeah. So
all right. So this is the time in the show, Anthony, where I'm gonna ask you to really think deep down, emotionally tap into your vulnerabilities. Think of a time in your life, the most daring time that you're willing to share with us today that was a dark moment. That might have been a pivotal moment in your life. It might have been a moment you're ashamed of. It might be a moment that you've never told anyone. Whatever you're willing to share with us today, and how that moment has helped make your pivot today. So I want you to think about that. I'm going to take a quick commercial break to recognize my sponsors, and then we'll come back. We'll have you share that, and then we're going to talk about all the great things you're using it for today, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Today's show is sponsored by Simple Changes from Wanda Reynolds. Make a simple change today for a healthier tomorrow with products like Simply Satisfy, which aids in gut digestion and curbs your appetite. Mental wellness is directly related to gut health, so keep a happy gut with Simply Satisfy. Then there's Simply Soothe. It helps relax your sore muscles and it supports your overall joint health. Simply Start is made from 100% organic hemp oil. It promotes your calmness, supports sleep, and maintains healthy joints. Contact Wanda Reynolds today through Facebook Messenger or at scdso.com/live life wonderfully. Health provides simple solutions to whole body health. To get and stay healthy, we offer Somaderm HGH Gel. Would you like to sleep like a baby and wake up rested? Do you want to feel maximum benefits from physical exercise? Do you want to burn through that afternoon slump with energy to last well into the night? Well, you can. And you may also experience 25 other whole body improvements with the gel. It's effective, safe, FDA registered, and very affordable. Diane has immuno boosters and keto support products too. Contact Diane Chasik at lifesmilehealth.com or text lifestyle to 64600 today. All right, Anthony. So I've asked you to think about a very vulnerable time. So this is that part we're going to dive deep in, and you're going to share with us, and then we're going to learn how you've used that to make shift happen in your life.
Yeah, what's interesting is I got a lot of those, and there's nothing at this point in time I don't talk about. So it won't be anything that like I haven't expressed. We've had some crazy ones. I realized after a while that it's better to get it out of me than to have it like some shameful thing. But we'll call it. So we'll take you back to, let's say, the moment that my buddy said that statement. The seed gets watered. We'll call it. And then for a lot of years, I was still running the gamut, trying to figure out how to be, we'll call it the Playboy guy. I had some money. I got this big contract in business. I was able to kind of close my gym, but still consult. I made more money in a year than I'd made in 5 years. Like I had freedom because my wife and I were divorced. So I'd have these 4-day weekends often. And then I was, traveling and speaking. I had this like, I'm the greatest thought in my head, but I really did feel empty. I did the whole distracting with a bunch of, women and drinking. I didn't do drugs. And I just kind of was just out there and trying to build something, but I never really had this anchor point. And that what happened was 2014, April 15th, in fact. I'm in a hospital and I hold my mom's right hand and I'm holding it as she takes her final breaths. And it was like this moment of like, man, and I'd kind of alluded to it earlier. Like, I was like, man, this woman's like MS was what killed her. Like MS took her life, took her full potential from her. But she allowed me to do mine. I'm like, what if I found a way to live in a way that kind of provided like her love to the world unconditionally and help other people reach their full potential because of what she'd helped me do, beat the statistics of it all. And so it was a thought of like, I want to try and do that now. And so at this weird window, it's June 2014, God opened this door. He's like, here's some money. Your lease for your gym is up. Your mom passed away, and I've presented you with this individual who can show you, it's a guy named Brennan Burchard, how to be able to turn your story into something that can actually be of use to the world. So all in this interesting month, like I was like, all right, let's lean in. And so I leaned in. And for a couple of years, it was 2 years, about a year and a half, I was trying to do this whole thing. I just was never really getting traction. And then I remember I woke up. I'd gone in 2015 to Russia and like was presenting and teaching, like, you know, again, doing cool stuff. It looks like on paper. And then I remember I had this woman come back, and it was this weird thing where January 1st, 2016, I wake up and I'm next to this woman who's just a complete, you know, physical situation, we'll call it. And it was this thing where like, I had this really interesting wave of like, I don't like this guy, a very like shameful feeling, we'll call it, because I'm like, I wouldn't want my kids to ever do this. Like if I saw my boys doing this, I'd be livid. Right. I didn't like in any way, shape or form feel good about this. I was like, this doesn't feel right. Like to my core, I'd come so far from my faith. I'm like, man, my God is not looking at me right now, gonna let me into his home like this, we'll call it. And then like my mom, like there's no way she's looking down right now, proud of this guy. And so at this point, like I'd had relationships that had failed. The business was always up and down. I'd been trying to borrow money from my ex-wife at certain points in time. My kids would come to the gym after school, and I would be at the gym trying to shove them into a room till 8 o'clock. And when I was done with my clients, get them some food, send them off to school. So I wasn't even a present dad. I spent more time with other people's kids than my own. And it was this wave of just, man, this guy is not a good guy, and this is not who I'm supposed to be. And it was like this complete revamp internally of like, I got to do some really difficult, deep work to figure out like, how can I fix this stuff? Because here's the thing most people won't do that I've found in my work now that was really hard for me to do was I had to find the common denominator in all these problems, and it was me. And that was a sucky weight, because I was like, when you own that you're the common denominator and you got to do work, when you finally own it, now you got to do the work. And that's hard because it's it's a lot of asking for forgiveness and trying to find out where you fit and what do I do? Because you don't even know what work to do. And then you may lose face for people. It was such an interesting 9 months, but that 9 months was the most pivotal that allowed me to fix my life and get my marriage back together and all that fun stuff. But it was, January 2016 is a day where I was like, man, I don't like this guy at all.
So you think that's the day you said goodbye to your ego?
Nah, yeah. No, that sounds good. It sounds good to say that. But no, if I'm being transparently honest, that was the day I realized I didn't like that guy, because the work I had to do, the ego kept popping up. Gotcha. There's people I had to talk to, individuals in life, and the ego would always rear up when I had to do that work. Because again, it wants to protect this identity you've already built. The identity I had was, you're good, you're okay, there's no problems. So when you go out and you have these conversations, you want to talk, you're like, there's this natural internal like, no, don't do that, because you're gonna expose this part of you. And so, no, the ego slowly got torn away. And I wouldn't say it's completely gone now. I still have moments where it rears up, whether it's in arguments or as a parent, like it's still there. But the heavy parts of it, I finally was prepared to do the work to get rid of it over time.
Well, that's what it's about. I mean, I think it always starts with the accountability part of it. You know, when I wrote my book, I was in prison, and it was written at a really dark tone, out of blame and shame, and you know, it was everybody else's fault but mine. I was angry. And then 9 years later, when I finally found the courage to let that book out, I had to rewrite it, because I had to rewrite it out of a tone of forgiveness and accountability, because that's the only way we only move forward. You're not going to ever move forward with that blame, you know, until you take accountability. That's step one right there. Taking accountability for it, and then realizing what work needs to be done and getting serious about doing that work. So
the problem is sometimes you got to give your whole self up. I've noticed that's been the hardest thing for me to explain to people. When all you are is that person who you don't like very much, you have to literally give up that entire person to get to the next level of yourself. And that's the scary thing, because people feel like I got to give all of me, and you do, but it's the only way to pay the price for who you can be. So you do got to give that stuff up, but you're not going to die. You're just going to feel bad. But then the cool thing is, the other side of that, you feel much better and more free. It's a light feeling. And that's really something that problematically people can't attach to just yet, if they've never been there. So you have to kind of ease into like the faith that that's what's going to happen. Then when you experience, it's like, oh, wow, this is a great feeling.
It is. And I think for my story, people that might relate to this, you know, a lot of women, especially, like I came from a domestic abuse relationship. So when I went to prison and finally got that physical separation, I realized I didn't even know what kind of food I liked. I didn't know what kind of music I liked, because he dictated everything in my life. So it was a rediscovery of myself. Like, to even transform to that next person, I had to first find who I even was to begin with, and then work on who was I supposed to be after that. So I think the important thing for the audience to know at this point is, no matter where you're starting along that line, is that the important message is you have to just start and take that first step, no matter where you're starting from. Just move forward, right?
Yeah,
for it.
baby steps. It's one, and if you don't know where to take the first step, seek that out. Sometimes before you even get moving, clear the path, chart a course, figure out what it looks like. Where do you want to be? Sometimes it's not prepared. It's not the time for you to actually start moving just yet. And I think that if you can give yourself the peace, like I don't have to be moving now, but at least spend time thinking about where you want to go, you can ease into it even that way also.
Right, right. All right. Well, let's talk about all the great things. I mean, thank you for sharing that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Let's talk about now. So you've been able to pivot your life. You've made shift happen. So let's talk about the
Yeah.
things you have: podcasts, you have books, you have a coaching program. Talk to us a little bit about all that.
Yeah. So for me, the work I do is with people who have pretty much ambitious, dream-driven people. Anybody that has a dream, big or small. And I don't care if you're just starting with a dream or you've already accomplished some things, you want to get that next tier. We all have kind of like this upper limit. And the upper limit is we'll call it the maxing out of your programming, which is your identity. Your identity, it's kind of like a computer, it runs it. And you can have programs, but if the operating system isn't functional and operational, the program won't run. Chrome's not going to open up. You're not going to have your text messages work in your phones and get that spinning wheel of death. In humanity, we were all, unintentionally programmed when we were young, whether, it was our parents or our teachers or our coaches who showed us what love and hard work and a career is, what money means, all these things that we're programmed with. Then we start living our life from that. And then after a while, we start getting to the point where if we don't update that programming, we get to the point where all the programs in life, the relationships we have, the career that we have, the body we want, those programs can't work well because the software is not operational. And so the work I do essentially is I teach people how to upgrade their operating system, to have an identity shift so they can finally reach their full potential, to get things met and achieved that they've maybe been trying to get done for the last 3, 4, 5 years, right? So it happens through making an identity shift, through a process I call the shift method. It's something that I've spent a ton of time perfecting and working through. So it's not that it's just Anthony talking. It's like there's a specific process that works. And it's delivered through coaching programs, through speeches, and through books. But that's really the thing now. It's like, how can I get this model into more people's hands? Because when people apply it, it's not like for one specific person. It's for anybody that has an identity. Because once you understand the way that your identity is formulated, how it was created, you'll understand how you can actually architect your what I call ideal identity for whatever dream you have, and then how to activate that inside your life. And a lot of it is kind of like a computer. I got to download the software, what's going on, and upload actions into my life. It's not easy, but it's something where if you think about it every day, you're doing things. What if those things you're doing are actually bringing you closer to where you want to be? So we go through the process of doing that and then helping people activate it in their lives.
Yeah, and I can tell just by your personality already, just a little bit we've talked, you're really high strung like me. You're fast thinker. I can already tell that anyone that's in your program that has a little bit of resistance, that you're all over that. Like I can just totally
In a
see
way,
you.
yeah. I'm not an abrasive. Most people think I'm like the football guy comes out, but you'd be surprised in those capacities, in those moments. I know the kind of person that somebody needs in that moment when I'm starting to be more vulnerable and open. You don't need the abrasive, shut you down person, because some people experience that as a kid. Someone got really loud and it closed them down. So if anything, I try to make them understand from a logical standpoint why they have the emotion they're feeling. And then we can start navigating through it. And then I try to give them an action to take that shuts off that weird part of their brain so they can go, oh, wow, I am capable of that. That is possible for my life, right? But it's baby steps, but I am on it. I don't let it go by the wayside, but how I address it isn't this abrasive, like demeaning kind of person. It's more of like, I want you to have this internal intrinsic drive, because I can't be around for you the rest of your life. But if you learn how to be around for you, you're going to be there the entire time you're alive.
Wow. So this shift method, is this a program, a book, a course? How do people find it?
Yeah, so the shift method is a process. It's if you think, any kind of process, you could have like P90X has their process woven within what it does. My process is very specific, very dialed in. How you can kind of try it out or use it is in my coaching programs, or you can absorb parts of it in my book that I'm writing now, or speeches. I travel around. I do virtual stuff online, obviously now, but more of it is just we'll have to go through, and then I'll unpack specific stages on podcasts or in coaching programs. And those people get to work through the specific stuff. Because for me, the one problem I had when I got into this world of improvement, it's very thought-based and, experiential from a standpoint of like, think this and hear this and read this. But I need something like, what do I do? Like, I'm in a faith. Like, it's great to have someone tell me, God's there, God loves you. But like, how do I live my life that way? What does it look like tangibly? Like what? And so those are the aspects for me that I'm really like big on here. I'm going to give you this concept, but here's what this looks like on a day-to-day basis when you wake up, hour by hour, 15 minutes by 15 minutes. What does it look like? That's what I actually provide for people.
Okay, so that's part of your coaching. That's
100%.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Tell us about your podcast, the All Shift
Podcast. Shift podcast. Yeah. It's
All
it was
Shift.
started for me to have something where I could actually have a reason to talk to people, like reach out to like a random guy, reach out to you like, hey, want to be on my podcast? And I've come to find it's been fun. I get to understand like the shift moments people experience in their life. It's one of those things where people, all of us have the shift. This is amazing moments, and shift. This sucks, right? But what you learn from those is the things that I think are very valuable to the rest of the world. So I extract those. I have a conversation about where you're at, what you've done, what you've gone through. And it's cool because I put that in center stage and let people hear other people's stories of these moments that most of the time you never hear about.
Right. And so people can find this podcast on all the normal podcast platforms.
Shift.com, awwshift.com. Yeah, all over the place. I pay a team to put it where it has to be. So it's everywhere.
All right. That's awesome. I love the name. I love your whole concept with the whole shift, everything around the shift.
Thank you.
It's great.
Yeah. It's been fun.
So you said you're working on a book, and what's the title of
Yes.
this new book?
The book so far, the title I'm going with is Identity Shift. I don't want it to be something that's arbitrary. Clean what it is, Identity Shift. The subheadline I'm working with right now is 3 steps to change your life the hard way. HARD is an acronym, habits, actions, reactions, and drivers, but it's actually kind of the intro stage of unpacking the shift method. So loose title is Identity Shift, the 3 steps to change your life the hard way.
I see you looking at your board. Is this your vision
It's on my board?
Yeah,
It's my dry erase. It's a big 8-foot dry erase board that I have all my notes on.
that's awesome. Some people use. I used to coach with Lauren Michaels Harris, and he has Post-it notes, the wall of notes. You know.
Yeah. I haven't got. I got big poster notes, but I don't know him personally. No, I've heard of him though. But I just have a big board where I write stuff down. I take screenshots of it, put it in my phone under dry erase notes, and then I redo stuff.
Redo it. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us what else you have going on.
At the moment, it's fun. As all this pandemic hit and the world went crazy, I redid my entire campaigns internally for the program. So before I had some baseline stuff, we've put a lot of time and a lot of money into redoing our entire company's programs, the aesthetics, the PDFs, the videos. And then I literally today just finalized the intro portion of the campaign I'm launching this week. By the end of the week, I'll be out in ads. But I'm excited to get that in and get it full. Because in the past, I've done a lot of stuff one-on-one or kind of word-of-mouth stuff, and I haven't really did a big push to launch all the coaching programs because I'm doing a lot of speaking. Whereas now it's like, hey, we're all home. Like, now it's time to push. So I'm excited to get these things out into the world at a bigger scale and press. And I've gone and done this exact model for companies like Amazon. I've gone and coached and taught these things. I've been talking with Lockheed Martin, like some large organizations, and it's been fun because this stuff, it works for anybody that has a personality or an identity. So it can be really configured to fit anybody's needs. So anybody that has an ambitious goal that they want to start getting traction towards, that's what fits for. So I'm excited to get this out because there's a lot of people like that sit at home, like itching to get something done, buying a bunch of books, but like I think it was called shelf esteem. They buy a book, they buy a course, put it on the shelf, and they get shelf esteem. I'm the guy that shows you how to actually take all these things you're buying and actually consume them and apply them to get the results you're looking for.
That's awesome because I'm guilty of that. I'm that person that buys all those online courses, like Brendan Burchard. You mentioned Grant Cardone. Yeah. I buy those intro and then the upsell, and I end up coming out there with a fortune and never even read material, never even watch the material because I have a full-time career on top of this in nuclear medicine. So it's like I'm that person. I'm that person right there, Anthony.
We're all there. That's what I work on. I mean, you'd be surprised. I any given time I'm taking like 2 courses, reading a couple books. Listen, I have a very specific way I live my life and how I operate, but that's what I teach. Like there's a certain part of me where if you think about it, those things are hard for people. And what I've looked at is the individual who has the life I want. Like if I was that person, I already have those things. That person does things differently. They look at how they consume, what they buy, how they operate, how they talk, how they respond to emails. They just do it differently. And for them, it's not hard because it's who they are. So when I look at the hard parts, I'm like, ooh, it's a place for me to stretch. Let me do this, not because I want to achieve this thing, but I want to be the person that does that. So it's just second nature for me. And then success just happens to happen. It's a very interesting dynamic, but that's the core of what it is.
Yeah. Well, success happens to happen. But like you said, you have to be willing to take that first step. You have to be willing to put the work in. But first, before you ever put the work in, you have to be willing to dig down deep and figure out what it is you need to work towards, and I think that's the part of this don't have the courage to do. I mean, that's the part, that's the hard part right there.
Because you got to admit, this is a thought that admitting that there's something you need to work on. People, I think, sometimes inherently think that means there's something wrong right now. It's not the case. To admit that you want more doesn't mean an admittance of you have less. Doesn't mean there's something wrong. It simply means that you've reached the outer limits of this operating system you've had since you were probably a kid. There's a lot of people waking up 2020 with brand new hardware, but running like Windows 95 for their identity, and it sucks. And so when you can learn like that's okay, there's nothing broken, nothing wrong. You can access that next tier of you to have what you want. Like that's when things start becoming more concrete. And like, I'm not a lofty idea guy. I'm like, I'm going to show you exactly how to put that into your life. Like, how do we plan this and then do it? And then, all of a sudden it's like, I don't know when, and maybe it's like a month ago, at some point I woke up and I'm amazing now. It doesn't happen by accident though. It happens by work.
Yeah. Yeah. So so you said earlier you met Brendan Burchard. Did you coach with him one-on-one, or you did some programs with him?
He's a buddy of mine. It's a really weird. So I started this whole thing by being just a guy in a seat in his event, and through a weird turn of events, weird connections, very God-driven. Like he's a buddy. I could text him right now. Like I'm in a weird group of cool, awesome humans. I go to his house in a different area. I can't really talk about it. It's obviously safety purposes, but yeah, I get to go and hang with him once a year. And then, it's just like, it's a cool thing because I went from being a guy that essentially had this idea, but because of how I operate, who I am as an identity, what I do, what I take action on, when we kind of got introduced, it was this thing that progressed into me being a guy, we'll call it. And so it's, phenomenal heart, servant's heart to the fullest, just loves people. And so it's cool to be able to call him a friend, and be able to see from the back, like, how do you do things right in this industry? How do you treat people? How do you show up? How do you work? Like I look at these individuals that are also part of our group, and I'm always studying how they operate. What are their nonverbal things that they do that nobody sees, they don't talk about? Because those are the things, when you start dialing into those, you see those and then shift into those. That's how success happens.
Right. And, not everyone's like us, Anthony. Not everyone wants to have a show. Not everyone wants to do a podcast or write a book. Okay. But there are people out there that still need to confront their fears. They need to confront the issues that they've been avoiding their whole lives. They still need to find their own identity. What advice could you give to the person that's not looking to monetize in any way or coach anyone else, but just kind of for self-reflection? What kind of advice could you give that person?
Yeah, there's always going to be a level of happy above what you have right now. We will settle sometimes for what we have because like, this is cool and I'm happy here. But like, there's such a higher level of happy past where we're at, same included. And so when you can give yourself the realization of like, it's okay to want more and there is something above you, it gives you this little bit of opening. But I tell people you got to own your shift. There's a big statement that it's like 3 words, but they matter a lot. Own is simply saying, own that there's something to work on. I don't know what it is for you, but own that you have something that you can do to be better. Which means even though there may be a problem or something went on, it's your responsibility to work on these things. Because realistically, like things could have happened that weren't your fault, but no one's going to come fix your life. It's your responsibility to do that and then shift. Some people know there's stuff they got to work on. They know it's on them, but they just get lazy. They don't do anything. Those who decide to shift perspectives and work ethic and drive, like those are the ones that create a better life. And a better life doesn't mean you're shooting for $1 million or want to be on TV. It just means you want better than what you have now. I tell people all the time, like, getting in shape doesn't mean 6-pack abs and you can run for 17 miles. Being in better shape maybe means you can walk up a flight of stairs without breathing heavy. Whatever your version is, set your own scale and then work towards it.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I think, inspiration is what we need in the world out there. I think like my slogan is judge less, mentor more. I think we need to lift each other up. And so many of us put on that, that facade. We want to appear like we're perfect and appear like we have it all together, but deep down we're a mess. And, we all have our own insecurities. And I just love the fact that you have such inspiring, like motivational inspiration, I guess is what I would call what I hear in your voice, because you inspire, but I feel motivated with the inspiration at the same time. You got me all hyped up. Be better tomorrow,
Get it,
I'm all ready for it too. I want to walk that flight of stairs too. Dang it.
Yeah. That's right. It's
No,
it's fun,
I think
man.
it's great. I think it's great. And I thank you so much. We're just about out of time. I have to wrap it up. But I just thank you so much for coming on. I look forward to being on your podcast coming up too this month, I think.
Yeah, so I believe it is. Yes.
Yeah, excited for that. And Anthony, keep up the good work. I love your slogan. I love your branding. I love everything about the shift. I think it's very brilliant and creative the way you've worked everything around it.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. And hopefully, if anyone wants to reach you, anthonytrucks.com, correct? Is that how they reach you?
Yeah. Best way to go, or Instagram, or here. And I'm the one that mans my inbox on all things, except for if you go to the company email. But like if you go to Instagram, you go to Facebook and message, I'm the guy that will actually personally respond to you.
Got you. Well, thank you for that. And we're going to have to say goodbye, but you take care and stay safe and blessed out there, man.
Thank you, too. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Anthony. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, you guys. So that was Anthony Trucks. He's pretty inspiring. He got me all hyped and motivated. If you have more if you'd like to hear more about Anthony, check him out on anthonytrucks.com. So I just want to go back one more time and just say to you, no matter where you are in your life, no matter what you've been through, no matter what you're going through now, there's always another day ahead of you that you can be better. We don't know what tomorrow brings, but you're in control of what you choose to do. So just wake up with the attitude, have a grateful heart that you're going to be better today than you were yesterday, in whatever way that is. During these COVID times right now, during all the stuff going on, we just went through Hurricane Laura. There's all kinds of opportunities around us every day to be a better person, to give a helping hand, to be a better humanitarian. And so I encourage you to be that one. Get out there, step up. Just by sharing your story, you could open up such a beautiful door for someone that's had part of that life closed down, that chapter in their book closed down and closed off, and it's kept them toxic and kept them angry and kept them sick. So just by you stepping up to be that one and sharing your experience with them, you may give them that courage to come out with their story, and at least in the mirror to themselves, if not with anyone else, just to be honest that, hey, this happened, but you know what? It doesn't define who I am. I'm going to be a better person because of it, and allow them to blossom and grow. So just remember that, keep that in mind. I encourage you all to step up and be that one. Thank you all for joining. Hi, Linda. It's very interesting for getting in on the second half. Yes, go back and watch it. Anthony's a pretty amazing guy. Thank you, Mistie and Anthony. Thank you, Robert. Thank you for being here. You're a loyal fan, and I love you and appreciate you so much for that. And yes, Robert, those are clarinets. Yes, I do play clarinet in the orchestra. That's a B flat and an E flat clarinet. Played clarinet my whole life. Got away from it for about 27 years, and picked it back up again, I guess, about 8-9 years ago. So yeah, those are clarinets. I like having them there. It's part of my life, a little bit of my history. It's different and unique. And it's a great conversation piece, apparently. All right, you guys, I have to go. It's been great having you here. Remember, if you want to know more about me or the show, just go to mistielayne.com. If you want to be a guest on the show, it's real easy. You're just going to type the word guest and send it out to Mistie Layne at mistielayne.com. All right, that's it for tonight. Love you guys. Bye.